I didn't want to forget to do that. So. All right, so it's 6:30. I think we're going to get started. We're super excited to have everybody here with us this evening. It's a nice one to be in, where it's not too chilly outside. Actually, it seems pretty warm as compared to the last number of days we've had, so a little bit of a heat wave for us. But anyways, thanks for joining us. We are here to get a presentation from Caitlin and Carla. They are from Ontario County Sustainability and Waste Management Department. They have lots to share, a lot of incredible information, very informative. So I'll give a little background on them in just a minute. I have a couple of people that are just popping in. So if I stop talking, that's why, just admitting a few folks. So I'm just going to run through a few slides on my end, and then I'm going to turn it over to them. So we have plenty of time for questions at the end. And just a little housekeeping, we are going to have hold questions till the end. If you want to throw them in the chat box as we go along, and then I can ask those to Carla and Caitlin as their end of the presentation concludes. Sound good? All right. So, if there's folks here that are joining us that are not familiar with the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association, I'm just going to give a little brief background and then just give you some upcoming events that are on the horizon for us, and then ways you can get involved as well. And then I will again turn it over to Carla and Caitlin. All right, if I can figure out how to advance the slides. So our mission at the Watershed Association, and apologize if you've heard all this before, our main focuses are on education, scientific research, and advocating for sound public policy. There's many ways we're involved. We have a K through 12 education program. We have many citizen science efforts, and some of you folks on here are wonderful volunteers that are online tonight helping with that. We really preach lake-friendly living, many things you can learn on how you can help protect the lake, including some of the things that Carla and Caitlin will talk about today within that. So lots of ways you can get involved to help preserve, protect, and restore the lake for generations to come. So please reach out if you have questions for us. We are a member-based organization, but really what keeps us going is our robust volunteers. So we thank them so much for all that they do for us. So some upcoming events on the horizon. Don't worry, you have to write all these down. If you're interested in all of them, check out our website. A lot of cool things coming up. We have our executive director going to be doing something on native alternatives to invasive plants. That's another Zoom presentation. We're going to be doing a presentation at FLCC in March and April. So March will be one on how wildlife shapes the watershed health. That's by professor from FLCC, John Bateman. That'll be great and interactive, lots of photos and things to look at. And then a Canandaigua Lake fisheries update at FLCC as well by Pete Osterman, who's a DEC aquatic biologist. There is a rain barrel workshop on the horizon that's May sounds far away, but it'll be here before we know it. There are some other things we'll be plugging in there as well, but these are the things that we have confirmed and some other ones that will be upcoming. And one more slide for you. So again, just some information on ways you can get involved. You can become a member, you can volunteer, take the Lake Friendly Living Pledge, just sign up for our e-news. Lots of information is coming out through our newsletters. In the summers, we have our water quality updates as well. Lots of things to keep you informed on conditions and things happening on the lake. Again, volunteer, and there's lots of things you can keep informed with through our social media platforms as well. All right. So let me stop share there, but I'm going to read a little bit about Carla and Caitlin quick. So Carla is the Director of the Sustainability and Solid Waste Management for Ontario County. She's got 20 years of experience in the waste management industry. She is responsible for guiding her department in their implementation of the county's local solid waste management plan and sustainability and solid waste strategic plan, providing landfill oversight and assisting with the creation of waste reduction, public policy, education, and program development. Caitlin McCumsky is Sustainability Assistant. She is responsible for planning, implementation, and logistical support of a variety of special collection events. She spearheads special projects aimed at waste reduction and serves as the county's primary recycling educator. All right. So sorry I didn't have that memorized, ladies, but without much further ado, I will turn it over to you.
All right, great. Everybody see the presentation okay? Very good. All right, well, good afternoon or good evening, and thanks for having us. I'm Carla, and I thought we'd start maybe today by just talking a little bit about some of those plans and policies that guide Ontario County's waste diversion and waste management efforts. The first thing we talk about is our department. The Department of Sustainability and Solid Waste Management was established by the Ontario County Board of Supervisors in January of 2019. Our charge is really to focus on increasing sustainable materials management, looking at waste diversion, really focusing on assisting our residents, our municipalities, and our businesses. And kind of those plans that support our overall charge are our local solid waste management plan and our strategic plan. As a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation recognized planning unit, we are required to have a local solid waste management plan. So many of you may know that the state actually creates their own plan aimed at waste management and how to be protective of the environment while reducing the amount of waste that we're producing in the state. The state has extremely aggressive goals relative to waste diversion and waste reduction. And I think they recognize that they cannot achieve those goals on their own. So part of making that happen is asking their planning units, which is mainly at the county level, to adopt these local solid waste management plans that really look at the county and what they produce and what we can do in Ontario County to reduce the amount of waste that we're generating. The plan has a 10-year term, and it has quantitative and qualitative goals, and all of the municipalities within the county are considered partners in the plan. Based on the timing of everything, our first local solid waste management plan actually expired. So we just went through the process of creating our new local solid waste management plan, which is currently in draft form and was submitted to DEC in December for their review and approval. If you have any interest in the specifics of it, we'll talk a little bit about that as we move forward. But when Caitlin talks about our website, all of the information relative to our draft plan is there. So if you're curious about what the county's priorities will be in the next 10 years relative to waste management, that has much more specific details in it. The other thing that guides our activities is our strategic plan. So, really looking at our vision and mission. And what we really want to do is have Ontario County be an example in the state with how we can manage resources responsibly and about how thinking about the way we handle things becomes second nature. And so our strategic plan specifically for the department was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in December as well. And it outlines three key focus areas. They are equal and adequate access. So it shouldn't matter where you live in Ontario County, whether you live in a rural portion of the county or in one of our cities, you should have the exact same opportunities for responsible waste management as anyone else. We want to make sure that our legislation is aligned, or the state's legislation is aligned with county plans for solid waste management. So we stay tuned into pending legislation and how it might impact our programs. Obviously, funding to advance our department goals is really important. So making sure that we're being responsible stewards of taxpayer money and that the programs that we create are sustainable in nature. Education and communication has always been one of our key focus areas because it's so important. And we truly thank you for the opportunity to talk about this because it's these types of conversations that help us be successful in that focus area. Another two things that are new focus areas for this strategic plan have to do with the board's policy decision to close the landfill in 2028. We'll talk about that later in the presentation, but those last focus areas are really looking at what's our department role going to be in that post-landfill era and looking at additional infrastructure. So as we anticipate that closure, what other infrastructure might be necessary or appropriate to help support our residents. So I'm not going to talk about landfills a ton because I don't think that that is the general interest area and that could be 2 hours on its own. But it's kind of the elephant in the room. So I think we need to talk about it really briefly. But if there is some additional interest or you want to dive deeper into landfill discussion, I'd certainly love to talk to you. So feel free to reach out. But just some historical perspective, in the board started having conversations about solid waste management in 1969. And that was a point in time where you could see all those little stars on this map are unlined landfills in Ontario County. So these have no groundwater protections. They're truly a dump. They're holes in the ground where land waste was disposed. And you could see, particularly in the Canandaigua and Geneva area, some of those stars are in alarming locations. So when back in the 60s and 70s, when people were operating online landfills and dumps, they generally picked area that wasn't desirable for development. And so a lot of times those were wetland areas. And that now would horrify us to think of. But that's kind of where we started the discussion as a county, is this is where we were. And throughout the 70s, the county took on a role to assist in the management of solid waste in Ontario County. And as these facilities started to close, the county purchased property and has been operating a landfill site since 1974. In 2003, we entered a contract with Casella to operate the landfill on the county's behalf. That contract is a 25-year contract. It ends in 2028. And as I've mentioned, and will mention again, the Board of Supervisors made a policy decision in 2024 to cease landfill operations at the landfill site at the end of that contract term. So we will be moving on from that as a focus for solid waste management. This is just, I put up for perspective too, because we started with the unlined landfills. This is where we are in New York State now. So now we went from unlined landfills to having landfills with liner systems under them that are meant to be protective of groundwater quality, so that they can be monitored. And so that's kind of where we went now, is from having that 22 unlined landfills in the county alone to having 27 landfills in the state, um, with diminishing capacity, right? So Ontario isn't the only landfill that's closing. We're seeing less and less landfill capacity existing in the state. This is the landfill site. For anybody, again, who has any interest in it, if you're looking at the top, that major thoroughfare at the top is 5 and 20. Canandaigua would be to the left of the screen, Geneva to the right. So there are 3 phases of the landfill throughout the history of it, the site's use. We also have the recycling facility is located on the site that Caitlin's going to talk about. And there is a landfill gas to energy facility that actually collects the gas that's created at the site. And actually, the gas is run through 11 large Caterpillar diesel engines that were retrofit to run on natural gas and creates electricity. So again, I throw it out there if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, any desire to ever want to see the site, we'd be happy to meet you there or discuss it further. So I referenced the policy decision that the board made about the landfill moving forward. That was done after an 18-month period where the board hired a consultant to look at alternatives for the landfill site use. And if you have any interest in reading that plan, that's also available on our website. So that is the information that the board reviewed in making that policy decision. And then last landfill thing I think I have is we do get a lot of questions about like what happens next. When the landfill closes, particularly if you're concerned for the environment, how is it going to be monitored? How are we going to make sure the site doesn't become an issue? And so part of the requirement to operate the landfill is to have post-closure monitoring. And so as the operator of the landfill and per our agreement with them, Casella has a post-closure bond in place to be able to monitor the landfill site for a minimum of 30 years. And what that means is during that period, they'll continue to collect leachate, which is the water that filters through to that liner system. They'll continue to collect gas. They'll continue to monitor groundwater and surface water. So all of their monitoring programs will continue during that period. Additionally, after that post-closure period occurs, there is also a term that is called custodial care. So after post-closure, the DEC can continue to require that post-closure monitoring and maintenance of the site for whatever period of time they deem appropriate. The last thing about waste, and then I'll turn it over to Caitlin, is what are we, Ontario County residents, throwing away at our landfill? So as part of our local solid waste management plan, we every other year hire a consultant to come up and do a waste stream characterization. And what that means is they come up with a crew of people and spend a week going through garbage and specifically taking out components, the different components of the waste stream, and weighing them so that we can get an idea, a statistically significant idea of what our residents are throwing away. And this helps us gauge what programs we need, where funding might need to be diverted, or where we might need additional educational efforts. So as you can see from this pie chart, that red piece of the pie, approximately 40%, just under, is not readily recoverable. So that is material that absolutely should be thrown away. Of the yellow piece of the pie, the 6.3%, is material that could have been brought to one of the special collection events that Ontario County offers. So it might have been a mattress that could have come to mattress recycling. It might have been household hazardous waste that could have gone to a household hazardous waste collection event. So that comprises that square there. The blue piece of the pie is the targeted recyclables. So that's just under 20%. So that would be your single stream recycling, your cardboard, your bottles, things like that that could have been recycled but weren't. And that second largest piece, the green piece, is compostable organics. And so specifically when we're talking about organics in conversation, we're really talking about food waste because in this area of the state, yard waste, brush, that type of material is a waste ban item. So you should not be throwing that away. That should be going to a composting facility. So approximately 35% of what Ontario County residents are throwing away is food waste and could be recoverable and compostable. And so when you look at this, it's easy to feel a little defeated because that's a lot that people are throwing away that they shouldn't be. But I have been reminded a couple times by several supervisors who are a little bit more glass half full than I am that that is a great opportunity because we have solutions for those waste streams. We have opportunities to collect that targeted recyclables and get them to the materials recovery facility. And it is not an incredibly hard lift to start targeting food waste. So that's kind of where we are in the snapshot of what we produce. And for perspective, Ontario County residents generally produce about 100,000 tons of waste annually. So if you want to kind of like think about those pieces, that's what we're talking about in terms of tonnage.
Okay, so the materials recovery facility, you'll often hear us refer to it as MRF, and you may see it abbreviated as MRF. So that's the facility here in Ontario County where all of the single stream recycling goes to get sorted. So as most of you are aware, we have a recycling program where all of your bottles, your cans, metal, and paper can all be combined and they go to a facility to be sorted. As part of that agreement with Casella operates a materials recovery facility co-located on the landfill property. When we were looking at that map earlier, it was the building kind of along 5 and 20. You may have seen it if you're driving in between Canandaigua and Geneva. So our single stream MRF was actually the first in the state to have this sorting technology where you didn't have to keep your cans and your bottles and your paper separate and bring them to a facility to be sent to a processor all in separate streams. So really the intention of programs like this is to increase recycling rates by removing any burdens that are associated with the sorting of those materials at your home. So our facility here in Ontario County processes about 50,000 tons of material each year, and that's received from all over the state. There is an excellent video on our website, and I'll give you a little tour of our website a little later in the presentation. But if you're really interested in how that equipment works and how that sorting process works, there's a video that actually walks you through the whole process right on our website for anybody that's interested. And the last thing that I really want to make sure when we're talking about the materials recovery facility, as I mentioned, that's part of the agreement with Casella to operate that facility. So that agreement does end in 2028, as we mentioned earlier. As part of that agreement, all recycling that is residentially generated in Ontario County is accepted at $0 per ton. So once the agreement ends, Ontario County residents will no longer have that rate. And towards the end of the presentation, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about what potential recycling in Ontario County looks like post 2028. But it is important to understand that there are costs associated with processing this material, a lot of specialized equipment. There's a significant workforce that works at these facilities. There are utilities and building maintenance. All of those things add to that cost, as well as if you have curbside service, there's a truck and a driver and fuel and maintenance that are all part of potential costs that Ontario County residents will see moving forward associated with recycling. So I'm going to go through slide by slide, and we'll talk about paper and plastic and metal all individually, and go through what materials are accepted and what materials are not accepted. Before we dive into all of the recycling tips, I always like to remind everybody of the 3 R's. Most people have heard of the 3 R's, and they actually come in order. So reduce, reuse, and recycle is the order that they come in. And it is really important to always remember to reduce as much as possible, reuse before you get to that recycling and composting step. As I mentioned, there are a lot of resources involved with sorting, recycling, and processing those materials for manufacturing. So it is important that we try and reduce and reuse as much as possible. Another recycling tip is everything needs to be clean and dry. There shouldn't be food waste or other contaminants in your recycling. Most often people will ask, how clean does it need to be? And I like to remind people that there are real people that work at our materials recovery facility here in our community. They are our neighbors, and I always say, would you want to touch it? So when you're putting things in your recycling bin, that's kind of, I think, a helpful thing to remember. Another important thing is nothing smaller than 2 inches by 2 inches should go into your recycling bin. The equipment that is used at the facility is not able to sort anything that small. It's just going to fall through and ultimately become a waste item. Another important thing to remember is that there should be no tanglers in your recycling. No cords, no ropes, no plastic films, and no textiles. Anything that's going to get wrapped up in a gear or a conveyor belt or any types of screens are going to be a hazard. And it happens at least once every day where enough tanglers get wound up in the equipment that they actually have to shut down all of the equipment, stop sorting, and people have to climb inside of that equipment and cut those materials out. And it's a really dangerous job to do. So please make sure that you're not putting any tanglers in your recycling. Similar to that, your recycling should not be bagged. It should be loose. If it is in a bag, it can't be sorted on that equipment. It is also a hazard to the people that work at that facility. They never know what's going to be inside of that bag. So they don't know if it could be something that's sharp or dangerous to the employees. So they are not opening bags. It will automatically be disposed of. So please make sure your recycling is loose so it can be effectively sorted. And this is a hard one, and we'll kind of keep coming back to this one as we go through the slides. Just because something has a recycling symbol on it does not mean that it can be recycled. Unfortunately, that symbol is not regulated. It is something that manufacturers put on their materials kind of to indicate what type of resin or plastic sometimes that the material is made from. And because the recycling rules vary from region to region, from county to county, state to state, the symbol is just not able to really provide the information about if something is accepted. It is also important to remember that rules change. So what I'm going to tell you today in this presentation is true here in Ontario County, and it is true today. We could get an email tomorrow from the materials recovery facility that says that there is a material that wasn't accepted that they now found a market for, or they could email us and say something that was previously accepted they can no longer accept. So it's important to know what resources are available to keep up to date on what the current recycling rules are. And I'll go through a lot of those resources a little bit later in the presentation. And lastly, when in doubt, throw it out. So if you are not sure if something is recyclable or not, it's better to place it in the garbage than to put it in your recycling bin if there's a chance that it could damage equipment at the materials recovery facility or potentially be harmful to one of the employees that works there. So we're going to start with the hardest topic first and hopefully get a little easier as we go. Plastic is definitely the material I think that frustrates people the most. People have the most concerns about if it's actually being recycled and what materials can be accepted. So before we dive into exactly what is and isn't accepted, I do want to mention that all of the materials that you place into your recycling bin here in Ontario County and go to the materials recovery facility are being sorted, and they are being sent to plastics processors or paper processors or metal recyclers and turned into new products. All of the materials that are brought to the materials recovery facility are sorted into bales, and all of those materials that are baled are staying in North America. So you often hear sensational stories in the media about materials not being recycled or going to third world countries and being stockpiled and not handled appropriately. So I think it is important for everyone to know that those materials are being sorted at our facility here in Ontario County, and they are staying in North America. Okay, so plastics. You will notice that there are no numbers on this page. Just as I mentioned earlier, the recycling symbol is not a good indicator of what is accepted. Neither are numbers. When determining what plastics are accepted, it's important to think about the shape of the item. So when I say shape, I mean things like bottles, jugs, tubs, lids and caps. The lids and caps can be left attached to the container. If they're loose, they're going to be too small. They're going to be smaller than that 2" by 2". So go ahead and leave those attached. And recently, this is a good example of things that weren't previously accepted that we were able to start accepting, which is thermoform plastics. So those are going to be your clamshell containers, things that berries or produce may come in, as well as clear plastic cups. So those are the only types of plastic that you should be placing in your single stream recycling bin. The types of plastic that you should not be recycling with your household recycling are plastic bags and films. And we'll chat about that. I have a whole slide about what are accepted through a special collection program that we'll go through later. Plastic packaging. So what I mean by that is if you buy a new pair of scissors, it comes in sort of plastic packaging that is difficult to open. That sort of bubble packaging, that's not going to be accepted. No type of styrofoam is accepted. That's a good example. Sometimes we will see styrofoam with a recycling symbol on it and a number 6. That's a good example of something that's not accepted but is labeled as such. No plastic utensils or straws. No pump attachments. So those are things that might be on lotion or hand soap. The bottle itself can be recycled after you give it a rinse, but the pump attachment should go into the garbage. And no prescription pill bottles. Those are going to be too small. Paper and cardboard recycling. So you can recycle any color of office paper, your newspapers, your magazines, your junk mail. You do not need to remove the plastic window from your envelopes. Your cardboard boxes, everyone's pretty familiar with those are accepted for recycling. We do ask that you flatten those. It's going to save room in your bin. It's going to save room in the collection truck, and it's going to make them a lot easier to sort at the facility. Pizza boxes are one that there's tons of questions and confusion about as well. Pizza boxes are accepted for recycling. You do want to make sure they're empty. If there's any crusts or papers or anything on the inside, any cheese, you want to make sure that that's taken out. A little bit of grease on the box is okay. Your paper egg cartons are accepted. They are the only type of egg carton that's accepted for recycling. Your plastic and your styrofoam egg cartons are not accepted for recycling, but we do always encourage reuse for those. Your cereal and cracker boxes, paper bags, paper towel and toilet paper rolls, so just the roll in the middle of those, and paper cups are all accepted for recycling. The types of paper that you can't recycle is anything that's wax or plastic coated, no paper plates, no paper towels, tissues, or napkins, no paper that's been soiled with food. This is one that there's a lot of confusion about as well, cartons. So no type of carton is currently accepted in Ontario County for recycling. So that's going to be something that milk might come in, orange juice. Sometimes you may see broth or a plant-based milk in the cartons. The cartons can be found in the refrigerator section with sort of a triangle top. And then you can also find the square ones on the shelf. So none of those cartons are going to be accepted currently. No frozen food packaging. Frozen food packaging has a special coating on it to help keep the food fresh in the freezer. Unfortunately, it makes it so that the packaging cannot be turned into new paper. No shredded paper, as you can imagine, that's really difficult to sort on that equipment. And no tissue paper. You'll notice a number of the don't recycle paper have stars next to them. Many of those can be composted if they are not coated with wax or plastic. Glass. So for glass, the only types of glass that you should be putting in your bin are bottles and jars. And these are going to be food and beverage containers. You should not be recycling window glass, picture frame glass, no ceramics, no Pyrex or other glass bakingware, no drinking glasses, no reading glasses, and no light bulbs. I do want to make sure I mention any color of glass is accepted. Any brown, green, blue, any color, as long as it is a food and beverage container. Metal. So the only types of metal that should be going into your household recycling bin are going to be clean aluminum foil and pans, aluminum, steel, and tin food and beverage cans. Again, these are just going to be the food and beverage cans. You should not be putting any batteries in your recycling bin. Batteries are one of the most dangerous things that the material recovery facility sees placed in household recycling bins. I believe there was a statistic that came out last year that the United States loses one material recovery facility a day to fires caused by batteries. So please make sure that you are handling your batteries properly. And we're going to be doing some education and coming out with a video about how to recycle and handle your batteries in the coming months. No scrap metal in your recycling bin. Those need to go back to scrap metal programs at your transfer stations. No appliances, no electronics, and no can lids that are loose. So if you open a can of soup, that can lid that comes off, it's going to be sharp, so it's going to be a potential hazard to the workers at the facility. And it's also going to be too small and fall through that equipment. So as I mentioned earlier, there are retail drop-off programs for plastic bags and films. Some transfer stations also have collection programs for the plastic bags. And the types of materials accepted at these drop-off programs. Again, now we're talking about a drop-off program. These are not things that should be going in your household recycling bin. Your plastic shopping bags, your cereal and cracker box liners, your produce bags, your zip top food storage bags, the wrapping that comes around bath tissue or paper towels, bubble wrap and shipping pillows. So shipping pillows you may get in a delivery. They kind of help protect in a similar way that bubble wrap does. Your bread bags, your case wrap, so that's something that might come around water bottles, your dry cleaning bags, and any clean plastic wrap. All of these materials, just like in your recycling bin, need to be clean and dry. The types of plastic bags and films not accepted through these programs are biodegradable bags, candy wrappers, chip bags, frozen food bags. Again, they're going to have that coating to keep the food fresh, but prevents it from being recycled. No pet food bags, no reusable bags, no salad bags, and no dirty garbage bags. The general rule of thumb for plastic bags and films is if it's stretchy, it's accepted. If it's crinkly, it is not accepted. So I'm just going to chat very briefly and high level about organics. When we were looking at that pie chart, we recognized that about 35% of our household waste is organics. We could do another whole hour or 2-hour presentation about organics, really getting into the nitty-gritty. But I do just want to mention some of the types of programs we have available in Ontario County. So we have a backyard compost program where we provide bins so that you can compost at home. Many of our transfer stations are now starting municipal drop-off programs. And there are some curbside services available for a fee. I will show you our website coming up here shortly, and we do have listings of what curbside services are available and where the drop-off locations are. We do strongly encourage you, if you are not already composting at home, it is very easy. It is very hard to do it wrong. We have supplies available for a very reduced rate for Ontario County residents. And I think it's important, for me, one of the ways that I like to think about it is when we talk about waste, we often think of it similar to a utility. And there's very few utilities that you get to control yourself at your house. And backyard composting is one of those things where you can rely on your own, a program in your own backyard. And it's basically just a combination of browns and greens that you put into your bin. So your greens are going to be your wet, slimy things, your fruit and vegetable peels, your grass clippings, and browns are going to be your dry things. It could be shredded paper, leaves, wood, things like that. So just a combination of those things into your bin, and you can have compost. We do sometimes also, I like to remind people that you can compost because you are a gardener and you want a finished product to use, but you can also choose to compost because you want to divert that material. There are a lot of neighborhood organizations and things that potentially a neighbor would be interested in using your compost if you are not. So as Carla mentioned earlier, we have a number of special collection events. I do want to point out these are 2025 dates, so please don't start scribbling them down. We are going to be coming out with our 2026 calendar in a week or two. So definitely stay tuned and I'll give you more information about how to stay up to date on that in a little bit. So we offer a number of different types of events: household hazardous waste, electronic waste, tires, paper shredding, mattresses. Rigid plastics are going to be things like 5-gallon buckets and plastic lawn furniture. We have an event for Freon containing appliances, air conditioners, dehumidifiers, things like that, as well as some pumpkin composting events. In addition to, or before I get off topic, all of our special collection events are open to all Ontario County residents, and there is currently no fee to participate in any of our events. We do require registration for most of our events, and that can be done online or by calling the office. In addition to our special collection events that we host throughout the county, there are a lot of retail programs for some materials. One in particular, I think that's really important for residents to be aware of is the post-consumer paint collection program. And that's for paints, stains, and primers. And that's at any Sherwin-Williams or Hadlock's location. We do have a section on our website that will detail all of the accepted materials and where those locations are. In addition to the collection events and retail drop-off, there are some mail-in programs for residents who are interested in kind of going above and beyond for that next step for those hard to recycle materials.
And the only thing I would jump in to add is, in addition to the programs, we're trying to look at ways to make access available on a more routine basis, because we know we don't like hanging on to things for 6 months to have to get rid of them. So we're looking at trying how we can make things more convenient for residents. And so last year we launched a municipal paper shredding program. So the county has bins located in all city and town halls in Ontario County. And any resident can bring residentially generated uh, confidential papers there. And we have hired a company to go around and shred the material, just like they're the same company that we use for our events. And they're at all municipal halls, no villages though, towns and cities, to try to make it more convenient. So that's something that we're piloting to see how successful it is and how well utilized it is by residents, to kind of bring it to your backyard and have the county foot the bill for it.
So this is another kind of unique program that our department developed recently. It's our can carrier collection program. Another great example of something that is labeled with a recycling symbol as well as language that says, please recycle. You'll see these if you buy craft beverages, beers and ciders usually. They will be snapped onto the top. And we did a test at our materials recovery facility. We knew that this was potentially a problematic material. We were getting a lot of questions from residents about it. So we got a case of them and spray painted them and sent them through the equipment. And we said, can we collect these curbside? What happens when we try and sort them? And because of the flat, thin nature of them, they were sorted with the paper and they were becoming a contaminant. So we started a special collection program where you can drop these off at a number of locations throughout the county. Most of them are at local breweries, and the local breweries are actually able to wash and reuse these. So circling back to when we were talking about reduce and reuse earlier, we found a solution that was even better than recycling, that these could actually be reused in our community, and it has a benefit to our local businesses. We also, as we were developing this program, had some conversations with the Finger Lakes Visitors Connection, and they actually let us know that travelers look to travel to regions where sustainable programs exist. So in addition to supporting our local businesses, this also helps to support the economy throughout the region by promoting sustainability in our community. We also, one of the things we like to promote about this program is that it's a fun way to start a conversation about kind of thinking outside the box when it comes to waste management. So most people think of a garbage bin and a recycling bin and think of this kind of two bin system. But when we were looking at that pie chart earlier, we identified a lot of other pieces to that pie. So it's a really great way to start conversations and start educating people about other programs and other ways to handle their waste. So this is kind of a snapshot of our website. We're running a little tight on time. So I will just point out a few things. You'll notice right along the top above the red bar, a tab for resources. So if you click that and you click on plans, studies, and surveys, that's going to take you to the local solid waste management plan draft that Carla mentioned earlier. It's going to take you to the waste characterization study plan that Carla mentioned earlier, our strategic plan, the landfill alternatives analysis. All of those documents are going to be under there. Also along the top there is the events tab. So once our calendar is finalized, that will be under the events tab there at the top. A number of resources under How Do I? And then as we move down the page, we have a number of blue buttons across the middle there. You'll find there may be multiple ways to get to things. We try and make our website very easy to use. If you're ever on there and you can't find something, please don't hesitate to call or email us. We'd love to help direct you to the resources we have available. One of the resources I would definitely want to point out is the Recycle at Home button, that blue circle there. That is going to have all of the information we talked about today about what's accepted for recycling and what is not. It's also going to have that video of the materials recovery facility and what that equipment looks like and how it works. Right below that is our material listing. So that's going to be an A to Z directory of everything from garden hoses to flags to tires. You can search it or scroll through it alphabetically, and that's going to have a lot of very specific answers to questions you may have. You'll notice a number of colored buttons there on the side. Those are going to be material specific. So there's one for batteries. We talked about batteries a little bit. There's one for that paint collection program, where to donate your textiles, what to do with your tires, unused medications, a number of common materials there. And then in the just to the left of all the colored buttons, what's happening with the recycling, that's where we're going to be talking about the most recent programs. If there's been changes to what's accepted or anything new that's happening is going to be listed there. All of our contact information is also always on there. Another program that was new last year that we are really excited about is our Alexa recycling assistant. So you can actually enable the Ontario County Recycle skill either on any of your Alexa devices, or you can download an app on your phone and use the skill on there as well. So you just ask Alexa to open Ontario County Recycles. It's waiting for one of our phones to go off. And you can ask a number of questions. Can I recycle a pizza box? What do I do with tires? How do I get rid of paint? What do I do with hazardous waste? There's a number of different prompts you can put in there, and she will answer it. So that information is going to be the exact same information in that A to Z listing. So whichever format is easiest for you to use, whether you'd rather listen and not have to search through, or if you'd prefer to read, all of that information can be found either way. Okay, we are getting to the end here. So another thing that you can find on our website is our impact flyer. Again, you'll notice this is 2024. We're working on collecting all of our data for 2025 right now. One of the things that we calculate is our waste diversion. So we track every waste stream throughout the county that we can possibly find. And then we decide if it's either disposed of in a landfill, might be our landfill, it might be another area landfill, or if it's diverted in some way, if it's recycled or composted. And then we can compare those two numbers. As Carla mentioned earlier, on average, we have about 100,000 tons of waste that is produced in Ontario County. And in 2024, we had just over 50,000 tons of materials that were diverted. So our diversion rate was 51%. And you can kind of see some numbers there going back to 2015. That was the length of the previous 10-year local solid waste management plan, which sets a target diversion rate. So that's kind of what we are always trying to strive for. And you'll see that we've made significant progress over the life of that 10-year planning document, increasing our waste diversion.
All right, and lastly, just to wrap things up, what's next? What's next for the department? And I think we talked about a lot of these things as we started. So we're going to continue to have the infrastructure discussion to say and I guess figure out what role the county has, if any, in managing materials in a post-landfill environment. Whether that means we continue to operate the recycling facility, whether there's organics processing facilities, a transfer station, things like that. Those are discussions we need to have now so that we're prepared in a few years. We'll also be releasing a request for proposals for assistance with an organics management plan because organics comprises such a large percentage of what our residents are throwing away. We want to dive deeper into that and try to figure out where they're coming from. So we're going to reach out to our residents, our businesses, our agriculture to figure out what type of quantities of materials are being produced and from where to help inform the decision on infrastructure or handling moving forward. And then the last thing I alluded to earlier, we do have a draft local solid waste management plan to the Department of Environmental Conservation for their review. We think it's a pretty great plan. We're pretty excited about it. And so we are moving forward as if it's being adopted. So this year in 2026, we are moving forward with the programs that we committed to in the plan. But once we hear back from DEC, there will actually be a formal adoption of the plan by the Board of Supervisors.
And last slide I'm going to throw up here. I talked about our website. I didn't actually tell you the address. It is ontariocountyrecycles.org. There is our phone number. You can also reach us via email at recycle@ontariocountyny.gov. So please don't hesitate to reach out to our office via phone or email. As Carla mentioned earlier, we are happy to provide resources and information and chat in depth about any of the topics we talked about today. The one thing I neglected to mention when I was talking about our website, the best way to stay in touch and up to date about what's going on with our department is to sign up to receive emails from us on our website. Right at the bottom, there's a section called Notify Me, and you can sign up to receive information about all of our special collection events. So the calendar will go out to that email list once that is available. And then each time registration opens for any of those events, we will email you both a phone number and a registration link. We also have a blog. You can read old blog articles along the top of the website, and you can also sign up to receive new articles from us. And those are kind of deep dives into some of the topics we talked about today that just kind of give additional information and context about a number of materials and programs and policies.
So we apologize. We went way longer than we were hoping for, but certainly hope if anyone doesn't mind hanging around, we're happy to answer whatever questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Carla and Caitlin. That was wonderful. I do see one question in the chat box at the moment, and this might have been answered after the question went in. This is from Sue. Does it matter what color the plastic tub is, like meat tubs, as far as recycling?
So no, any color plastic can be recycled as long as it is a bottle, jug, tub, lid, produce container, or clear plastic cup. The plastic cup is going to be the only one that's color dependent. Those red plastic cups are not accepted.
Does anybody else have questions? You want to pop in the chat box at all? I think the presentation was extremely thorough, so it covered a lot of the questions folks might have had. So Brian is asking, are the local transfer stations aware that they should accept thermoplastic berry containers?
Yeah, so we do our best to get information out to our municipalities about any changes in the recycling. That was one that got added a couple years ago. So the only thing, we do have a couple transfer stations in our county that actually take their recycling out of county for processing. So we are specific to if your transfer station is going to the Ontario County MRF, that's the material that should be accepted there. And if you want, you don't have to call them out now, but you can definitely shoot us an email with a specific transfer station you're concerned about, and we can let you know if it's one of those ones that transports out of county, or if it isn't, we can definitely reach out to them and let them know what the updated list is.
Thank you. Another question from Sue. What is the definition of a tub?
So tub is often also referred to as a dairy tub. So it's something maybe yogurt comes in, maybe butter, sour cream, those types of containers.
Any other questions, folks?
This would be our least amount of questions ever.
Well, I learned a lot just by reading it earlier and then also hearing it again. So I think the information you provided was extremely thorough, and knowing where to get further information on your website, which has a lot of great resources, is super helpful. And obviously being able to call and chat with you two ladies is great. So meat plastic is not recyclable, is another question.
Correct. Meat containers are not accepted for recycling.
I did not know that. And then Judy's asking, should we be worried about the landfill closing and costs of garbage?
Yeah, so certainly that's a concern, right? Even Caitlin pointed out that we have a unheard of rate into the MRF right now. Even just recycling is $0 per ton. Right now, out of county recycling into that MRF is $100 a ton. So that is a large swing for material like that. And with the landfill closing, that's kind of a wild card, especially because there's some unknowns with other area landfills going on with potentials for expansion or not for expansion. So we don't really know what disposal capacity is going to look like in the coming years. And so that's why we've been directed by the Board of Supervisors to focus as much as possible on waste reduction and diversion, so that at the end of the day, if we're exporting waste or whatever we're doing with waste, it's minimal and will help mitigate any potential costs associated with that.
Do you want to talk a little bit about competing against other waste too?
No, I can go on with that forever, but I want to be respectful of people's time, but certainly I understand that we have thrown a ton of information at you too. So if you get off of this call and you're like, oh, what did they say? Certainly, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. As you can probably tell, we could talk about this ad nauseum. We love what we do, and we're happy to talk about it.
I saw Judy's other question. Judy, there's been Judy's question was, is anybody trying to do anything to get rid of plastic? We could talk another whole hour about extended producer responsibility. There has been a number of bills in the state assembly and state senate to regulate packaging and specific to paper and plastic. Those programs would help to mitigate some of the costs to local governments in regards to processing, recycling. We keep hearing every year that this is going to be the year something's going to pass, and it hasn't. There are other examples of extended producer responsibilities. The one most people are probably familiar with is the bottle bill. So you have to pay a nickel if you buy a plastic bottle or a glass bottle from the store, and then you get that deposit back. So that's an example of that type of bill. So it seems like there is a potential in the future for some programs like that that could help mitigate some of these issues.
Very helpful. Thank you. Any last questions before we depart for the evening?
It was very nice to see some familiar names in the attendees there.
Oh, another one popped in.
How much are these special programs?
Are there special programs specific to restaurants to help reduce green waste, and how much resident against commercial waste do we see?
Yeah, so that's something that we're hoping to find more information about in the organics management plan, is to determine the need for that type of program or assistance for businesses or commercial entities. The county does have a program for our school districts. So we're working with the schools to try to have them reduce food waste and offering funding for setting up those types of programs in districts. So if any of you guys know teachers in local schools that can help spearhead that, we just have a couple of schools at this point that are separating their food waste in their cafeterias and back of house with processing to keep that out of the landfill. But that's kind of where our focus has been because it's such a large volume and in a controlled environment. So that's kind of been our pilot to try to see how successful we can be diverting materials with the schools. We've also had some conversations at various points in time with some of the cities relative to like shared resources. Like if you have a main street and there's lots of restaurants, is there something we can do to collect food waste? So certainly if you know of an opportunity or interest, businesses that might be interested in piloting something, we would love for you to reach out because we haven't had a lot of interest at this point in time. But there is legislation relative to food waste and thresholds for requiring donation and recycling of food waste. And we think the state's going to continue to ratchet down that level at which the amount you generate, you have to do something other than throwing it out. So we're trying to get ahead of that and get people prepared for having to divert their waste to a kind of a higher and better use. Hopefully
Great.
answered the question.
That could be another.
So I bet. Well, we'll have to have you back for many presentations to kind of lead us there. Our local food pantry partners with a local pig farmer. Oh, that's cool.
That's great.
Thanks for sharing that, Jeanette. And I did hear you just briefly mention, you said that there's possibilities that the MRF might stay open
Yeah.
if once the landfill's closed.
Yeah, so that's one of those discussions the board still has to make a policy decision relative to that. I can tell you when the previous Board of Supervisors was making that decision about continued use of the landfill site post 2028. I did not have any conversation with anyone who objected to continuing to have a recycling facility located on the site. But there are some things that we'd have to figure out that would have to go out to an RFP and we'd have to find an operator and things like that. So there's still a process for that that will be a part of that infrastructure discussion.
Thank you, Carla.
Sure.
All right. All right. Well, I think that might be it. And again, folks, thank you so much for joining us. I think people really enjoy this and I think they learned a lot. So again, don't reach out to Caitlin or Carla if you have further questions about this presentation. And thank you so much, you two, for your time and coming out and joining us for the evening. We really appreciate it. And I know we'll be in touch with questions and how we can partner further. So thank you so much.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you, everyone that was able to join us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Stay warm.